if you want to go to college and if that's part of your story, I'm not here to tell you not to go. What I'm here
Yeah.
to encourage you to do is get real life experience before you go to college. And that's what I wish I had done
Hmm.
as after high school, travel, work, do something that allows you to get experience and understand the value of a dollar,
Yeah.
understand sort of what you feel you could contribute to the world. And it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be, that's the other thing. Like at 17 years old, as a high school junior, you're expected to start applying to colleges and programs that dictate the rest of your life. And that is
Hmm.
insane. 6 months ago, I wanted to do something that was different from what I'm doing now. Like we
Yeah.
shift and we grow as humans. And if we think about a toddler, every day that toddler's view of the world changes. And every
Hmm.
day that toddler's goals change because they achieve one crawl forward and they're like, cool, tomorrow I'm going to do two. The next week I'm going to stand. And then 3 months from now, I might run. Like we are created to change and progress and challenge ourselves. And so when we all of a sudden have to decide on this path and we go to college and we take the courses and we get on this path and deep down inside we're like, oh my god, but this looks cool and I think I want to do that, but I already committed to this is my major and I'm going to get this job and I don't like this job and I'm here and I don't feel like I'm growing, but that's what everybody told you to do. And so we end up on this track where we become numb, and I feel that it's extremely damaging to
Hmm.
our potential as humans and contributors to the world. We have
Hmm.
so many gifts, and I'm so grateful to have had the paths and experiences that I've had in order to get me to this place that I am today,
Yeah.
because my entire business is designed around supporting people creating businesses around what they love to do, not what
Yeah.
someone else told them they are supposed to do, not based on the corporate ladder, not based on this trajectory that we were told we're supposed to be on in order to achieve success. And
Yeah.
if college does not fit that for you, not going to college does not mean that you fail.
Yeah. That's
So that's
true.
where I stand.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Kava Club podcast, where we promote healthy conversations, experiences, apply knowledge, stories to promote happiness, love, success. When harmonized and complete balance completes the circle of life. You guys already know who I am. My name is Will. I'm the host of this show. If you're watching this, if you're tuning in for the very first time, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Please show some love and support. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Everybody out there that's been showing so much love and support to me, sending me so much positive feedback. Thank you so much. Keeps the fire burning, keeps the vela, that fire inspiration going to keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you so much. But I am excited today, y'all. I am excited today. We have a very special guest. We have a very special guest. It's one of our sisters all the way from Hawaii. She is the owner of Pualena Digital Design, and she is an entrepreneur. Oh, she killing the game, y'all. She killing it. All right. I'm very excited for her to join us on the podcast for today. I just want to say thank you to her directly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining me and taking the time to do this. Very appreciated, very grateful. But I'll allow her to introduce herself real quick for all of y'all. Go ahead. It's all you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Pualena. Most people just call me Pua. I am 34 years old. I'm an entrepreneur and the owner of Puelena Digital Design. I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, German, Dutch, Polish, and I just found out from my grandma, she left it off my mom's birth certificate, but I'm also Portuguese, which is like an exciting thing to find out. So yeah, super stoked to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think for you, when it comes to your ethnicity, you just keep it open because just in case you find out more.
I am humanity.
To put it, etc., etc. Just dot, 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 dot. It's not finished yet, y'all. It is totally incomplete. Dot, dot. All right. So, Polena, thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited for you to have you on the podcast for everybody. So I guess we're going to get right into it. I guess the first question I do want to ask you is, a lot of people don't know who you are. So can you give a quick synopsis of your life story, your background, and how'd you grow up?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so funny when you ask me to tell my life story and start from the beginning. I'm like, where is the beginning? Right? Because we all have like that, we're age 0, but that's not really where our own memory and recollection of our story begins. And we sort of brush through the first like 10 years of life normally. And we say like, oh, I was born. So for me, I was born in Torrance, California. My dad was doing his medical residency there. My mom's from Hawaii. They met here. And so their goal was to always move back here.
Okay.
And yeah. And like at the time, when you're a kid and you just sort of take everything for truth and you're like, this is where I live and that's where I'm going to go. Yeah. And so it wasn't until I grew up and I looked back on their story and I was like, that's such a beautiful thing that they had to work hard to be able to return to this place. So I am super grateful for that now, even though I didn't understand it then. And even when we were living there, so I moved back to Hawaii when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
But I remember coming back every year and visiting my grandma who lived here. And I think we would come for like 1 or 2 weeks at a time. And my parents would always put me in a hula class. So it wasn't obviously like to do hula for 1 week or 2 weeks is not necessarily like training, but it's just exposure. So I still have my implements from when I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And I still, to this day, I use my ulis when I do like gigs out. Well, we used to be able to do gigs and that kind of thing. So I'm grateful that they instilled that in me as a child. I was homeschooled for the first, I started going to school in 4th grade. So at home, right, they could teach me things. My dad's a linguist and he knew a bunch of languages. And so he was always very mindful of instilling the importance of culture in me. And so I knew growing up that culture was important, but personally, I never really felt super connected to my Hawaiian roots.
Why did you feel that way?
I'm not sure. And I know, like, I feel deep inside me connected. And I think that always existed. But I think I also was just a very curious child. And I loved, I got into gymnastics and tap dancing and like, there just like all the things that I was exposed to. I played violin. Like I was very blessed to be able to have opportunities to learn all of these different art forms. And I went to a great private school and I'm super grateful for that. And I think, even though it was here in Hawaii, it was a missionary school. And so it was more focused on like, what do you need to go to a good college, or what do you need to be well-rounded, or how do you need to like progress academically? And we had a May Day program where we learned some hula, and there is that, but it was never really at the forefront of my awareness until I went away. Isn't that funny, right? Like, so I went to college in Colorado and I met friends, like my friends there were all from Hawaii. And there was a Hawaii club and we had a luau every year and sort of I realized how much I missed it here. But I didn't understand that I loved Hawaii and I loved being here. I loved the culture. I loved the vibe. I loved the environment. I loved the aina. I loved just like this place. And I didn't know until I left. And one of my best friends that I met up there danced for a halau here. And she said, okay, when you graduate and you move home, you're going to join my halau. And I was like, I don't know. That sounds like a big commitment. But I did it. And it was that reconnected me with hula, not just the action of dance, and like the movement, but the meaning behind it, the culture, like the actual connection to my ancestors through the art form of hula. And then I was able to, hone my language skills, which like are very minimal. I'm still working on it. But, and then I got interested in things like lauhala weaving and rock wall building, uhau humu pohaku, and like making lehulu, and like all of these ancient arts I got to sort of experience through hula. And so that really triggered my understanding that like it was an issue that I grew up not feeling connected to my culture, and to create a new space for both parents and kids to be able to weave that into, how do you raise your kids in a modern sort of American society, but not lose touch with the things that connect us to our roots and our ancestors. And so that's really exciting for me, and the work that we're doing with Pacifica CEO, because that's a big focus for us, is making sure that the connection to our culture and the connection to our roots is infused with our progression as a human race and as entrepreneurs and as mothers and fathers and role models in society today. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Long story short.
No, that's fine. No, that's I love how you talk about self-identity, because self-identity has a big part of when it comes to our happiness. I feel like everybody knows the quote, in order to be happy you have to find yourself. Right? And in order to find yourself you have to figure out like who you are, and also like your identity as a person, the culture we come from, your background, your ethnicity. That's why a lot of people, they want to know their history, because at the end of the day, like, we're social creatures. Like, we want to know where we fit, where we, we want to know where we fit in society, and we just want a place where everybody can accept us as individuals. I don't know if you remember high school, when you go to high school, like when you walk in, and for the first time you have to figure out, okay, which part of
like where do I hang out?
Yeah,
Am I allowed
exactly.
to be here? Why are they looking at me? Yeah.
So we do this like our whole life, as we progress into adulthood, when you go into a job, into a career. But I am very interested. I do want to ask you, when you went to school, like, who did you hang around with in school? Was it a mix? Was it like a multi mix of people, or do you have a specific group of kids that you just hanged around with? I want to ask you that question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I don't often think about this because it feels like it feels very far behind me, but it's not really. I was a very sort of inclusive, happy, bubbly, friends with everybody kind of person. And I did have my sort of core group of friends. And looking back, those friends sort of like, there was an ebb and flow of, in 7th grade, I had these, and these were my best friends. And then in 8th grade, just sort of depending on what activities I was a part of, who was in my classes. But I do remember walking around campus and just hugging everyone I saw all the time. I was just like, hey, good to see you. Even though I saw you 10 minutes ago, let's hug it out,
Yeah.
It's like, and it's funny because I was sort of like, I'm introverted by nature.
Yeah.
I love to sort of be by myself and recharge, and I get very exhausted in social situations.
Yeah.
And I prefer sort of smaller groups, like intimate, small connections. But I also I never realized how social I am until I am not social for a while. Like this lockdown situation, at first I was like, this isn't that different from the way that I normally live my life. Like I'm good. But about 6 months in, when I saw the first outside person for the first time, I was almost in tears. Like, I was like, oh my God, I miss other people. So yeah. I don't know. That answer your question.
No, yeah, good. No, good. That's a question I always hear from a lot of people, that especially, Polynesians or people in general that have different, they have different type of ethnicities when it comes to their genetic makeup of who they are. And they always talk about this lack of trying to this disconnect of because they don't know where they fit, because, when you had your introduction to that, you set up a variety of different ethnicities. So when people look at you growing up, did they always identify you as a Polynesian? What did people think? What did they identify you when you met people growing up?
I feel like growing up here specifically, there is less of an emphasis on that. So I didn't necessarily, there wasn't really an ethnic grouping of people
Okay.
per
Yeah.
se, because everybody's mixed here. And
Okay.
it's funny because I didn't understand that fully, and I wasn't really aware of that until I went away.
Two in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a very strong emphasis on like, oh, you're Asian, you go over there. Oh,
Yeah.
you're Black, those are your friends, and it's like, I was like, what? Like, I don't understand this. So I'm grateful looking back, growing up in a
Yeah.
place where like I didn't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And on the mainland, like I was Mexican to everyone. I was like, no, I'm not.
So yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you were
right.
Mexican.
Totally. And it's like a thing.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. Like
Yeah.
I'm excited for people to sort of let that be a secondary form of judgment and
Yeah.
instead see people for who they are. And we have a huge issue with that right now. Again, being here in Hawaii where everybody's Asian and white and Polynesian and we're all mixed up, but seeing the like Asian hate stuff going on right now in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I mean, racism against Black people has been a thing for centuries. Like it's just not okay. Like we should be past that, like way past it.
Yeah.
And I personally can't wrap my mind around why it's still a thing. But
yeah, that's one thing I always hear from a lot of my friends from Hawaii is they say like when you go to Hawaii, they're very, I guess, sensitive. I guess, especially like the real Hawaiians. If you go to specific places, is that true? I mean, I don't really know Hawaii like that. But if you go to certain beaches, if you don't know the type of people that live there, or like if you're not part of that group, that they prefer you to stay in like the public beaches. But if you go to like certain beaches, and then like they're very like sensitive of who they allow in if you're not like real Hawaiian, if you're not from that area. Is that true, or I want to ask?
It's funny, like people always tease me that I sort of see the world through rose-colored glasses, and
Yeah.
I truly believe that it's a matter of intention. Like, of course, if you go anywhere like Japan, I learned that people in Japan are the nicest people on the planet. They are they're just like the best hosts and hostesses, and they will take care of you and they'll help you and they'll go out of their way to make sure you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they also know that like you're not going to stay there. You're going to go back home. And that's sort of, I think, the story here. Like, we will, as long as your intentions are good and you're not trying to be a jerk and you don't show up entitled like you own the place and you want to come and learn and experience and then go home. Like, I think that's sort of the feeling here. And there's just some trauma. Like it's both like historical trauma of like, Westerners coming in and literally stealing Hawaii from the people. So there's that like deep-seated trauma. And then there's also more recent like surface level trauma of like, we have a lot of military here. We have a lot of visitors who come in and they don't quite understand the level of like respect for the land and respect for other people. And they just come in, trash the beach and leave. And we're just like, are you serious? Like, get out of here. And so there's, it to me, if you earn the respect, you get the respect, and it's not hard. Just, don't come in making like this is your space and doing whatever you want to it, and we're good. And I think that is true no matter where you go, right? There should be.
Yeah. No, that's true. That doesn't matter where you go. People want to, especially if you live in that area, people want to protect it.
Right.
It's like that's what they say, like the motherland. It's like we treat our country like our own mothers.
Right.
So when you trash somebody's area, it's like trashing their own mom, and for a lot of people. So I understand that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have heard that. So of course you went to college, you came back, you joined your friends. Of course, what do you call it?
Halau,
your friends.
yeah.
Halau. Okay, for everybody that don't know what that means, can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. So halau is actually just it's HALAU, and it's just a meeting place. So sometimes it's a structure or just a place where we understand that we meet. So even like paddlers, the place where they store the canoes is called a halau. So, but here, sort of a slang term for, I'm going to go to the place that I practice hula, like, oh, we're going to halal today, or we're meeting at halal today. But that basically is just a place where we practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came back, you joined your friends halal, and so what happened next? What was the next phase?
So that was 2009. I came home, and it was an interesting time. So I graduated in 2008 and moved home.
Okay.
And it was the middle of that recession, right? We all remember that. And I wasn't really able to find work. When you recently graduate from college and you're like, oh my gosh, here we go. I'm going to go get my office clothes, I'm gonna apply for jobs, and then I'm going to work downtown, and everybody's going to hire me because I'm super educated now and I'm really good at what I do. And like, it burst my bubble one after another. Like, nobody wants to hire me. I don't know. I graduated college with a communication degree, and I don't even know what that means. Like, it's like blindly trying to feel my way through this post-college life. So I actually started working for my dad doing his medical billing, which is not what I went to school for. And then from there, I got a job doing medical billing for an occupational therapy clinic. And I was like, well, this is my life now. I am a medical biller. And but I was like, this is not where it ends for me. I always, so I actually ended up researching internships all over the world. And I ended up in China, and I lived right? Super random. So I spent 3 months interning at a international agriculture and marketing firm in Shanghai. And I wrote these like long marketing reports. I would go to like grocery stores and different shops, and I would do research on different goods. Like one of them was about like cashews. And then one of our clients was Lay's potato chips. And so I would go and like find all the different kinds of potato chips. And then we had to write reports and talk about like labeling laws and importing laws. And it was weird, but cool. And I remember we did like trade shows, and we would host dinners. So it was a liaison between the China and American markets. So I was an asset to that company because I was a native English speaker.
Okay.
Didn't speak Chinese, but it didn't really matter because their clients were all American. So they actually, it was illegal to pay their interns, and they paid me, and they tried to get me to stay. I was like, no, thank you. This is not for me. But it was a great experience. And at the time, like, I wasn't finding work here anyway. So I did that for a little bit.
How was that experience in China for the first time when you went there? How was the culture? What stands out for you looking back when you went to China for the first time? Because everybody in Western society, we have our own like perspective of what China is, right? But nobody really knows what it is. So like, can you share that with everybody about like how it is living in China and the culture over there?
Totally.
Especially the traffic. Like explain. That's one thing I hear about China is like, you better know how to like, you better take care of yourself, especially if you're walking that crazy traffic.
Yeah. So in college, I went on semester at sea, which is 1 semester long. So 3 months of like circumnavigating the globe on a ship. So I was able to like travel to all these places for maybe 5 or 6 days at a time. I had been to China before for 5 days. So I at least was like exposed to a little bit of like the shock of traveling to China. And through that, I was in Beijing, which was much more sort of your stereotypical China travel experience, right? And yeah, it's different. It's really intense. And Shanghai is a little different. It's a little bit more of an international city. They speak a totally different dialect. So in Beijing, they speak Mandarin, and it's a different dialect there too, but at least if you learn Mandarin, you can understand what people are saying. In Shanghai, it's like the Shanghai dialect, and it is completely different. So I had a Mandarin tutor, and I could communicate because everybody still speaks Mandarin, but I couldn't understand anything on the street. So that was interesting. I was just like, I have no idea what's going on anywhere. But what I will say is like, Chinese, the language and the sort of, I use the word ano, which is a Hawaiian word that sort of just means like the vibe.
Okay.
It feels very intense. But I think that often gets mistaken for anger or hostility
Yeah.
or impatience. But they're super kind. They're
Yeah.
super welcoming. Oh, they're totally willing to help you. And it's the same thing as traveling anywhere. Same thing we were talking
Yeah.
about if you come here. Like
Yeah.
the vibe you give off and the energy you give off, if you're there and you're just operating from a place of like, hey, this is just where I live right now. Like, can you help me find this? Like,
Yeah.
people are so wonderful. Of course, there's bad people everywhere, and you have to be
Yeah.
mindful and careful. And but I never had a bad experience. I
Yeah.
was really, I really enjoyed my time there. After 3 months, I was ready to come home, but I don't regret going, and I wouldn't say that. I would always recommend going to Shanghai to people. It's a beautiful city. It's very modern. It's very clean, very. And I
Yeah.
think it's because it's relatively new. Like when I was working, I worked downtown and there was 2 high rises coming up. And over the course of 3 months, they went from the ground to being done in that time. So it's constantly under construction. So because it's so new, it's pretty clean and like people are respectful, and I had a really good experience. Yeah.
What do you have any like some weird funny stories from China that you or no?
I haven't thought about that trip in a long time. I do, and I'm sure they'll come to me. Yeah, I have like I know I do. And I remember it. Like there are stories and they're right there and they're probably going to come back as soon as we hang up. But if I remember any while we're talking.
Yeah, that's fine. If you remember, it'd be fair to come up, just let me know. It's all good. No, the one thing it's pretty cool, just listening to your story, how you graduated from college and then, and totally went into a different career path, totally opposite of your degree.
Yeah, completely.
I remember when I left college, like I was like the same way, okay, I'm about to leave the real world. I'm about to go into the real world. I'm gonna find a job. I'm gonna go out there, attack the world and build my dream and build my life. Then you go into the real world and realize, oh my God, it's totally opposite of what we've been taught at school. So I do know there's a lot of young people that watch my podcast, and I'm very interested in your perspective regarding like, because today you're an entrepreneur, right? So you own your own business, you're an entrepreneur. So what's your what is your perspective when it comes to going to college? Because I know there's a lot of kids that watch this, they're trying to figure out. I have my own perspective, but I'll allow you to have your to share your opinion about it. But of course you already know, right? That's the traditional route of what most people in society encourage a lot of kids. If you want to be successful, if you want to live a fulfilled life, you have to go to college. You have to get a college degree, which is very interesting because you are an entrepreneur now. So you have that different lens when it comes to looking at that choice. So, but for today, there's kids out there right now watching, or people out there watching right now. They're trying to figure out their life, what they want to do. Should they go to college, or should they act upon a passion or something they want to do for their life? But what's your opinion about that?
I want to preface this by saying, don't let what I say influence your decision without talking to your family.
Yeah.
Because I have so I went to a college prep high school. Yeah. The entire intention behind everything we did was to get us into college. And looking back, like I think part of the reason why we leave college as 21-year-olds with that like, yay, here I am in the world, I'm ready for you, is because we don't have exposure to the world, because we go from grade school to high school to college in this very it's like it's packaged for us. And real world theory. Whereas if you want to go to college and if that's part of your story, I'm not here to tell you not to go. What I'm here to encourage you to do is get real life experience before you go to college. And that's what I wish I had done. Is after high school, travel, work, do something that allows you to get experience and understand the value of a dollar, understand sort of what you feel you could contribute to the world. And it doesn't have to be, that's the other thing. Like at 17 years old, as a high school junior, you're expected to start applying to colleges and programs that dictate the rest of your life. And that is insane. 6 months ago, I wanted to do something that was different from what I'm doing now. Like we shift and we grow as humans. And if we think about a toddler, every day that toddler's view of the world changes. And every day that toddler's goals change because they achieve one crawl forward and they're like, cool, tomorrow I'm going to do 2. The next week I'm going to stand. And then 3 months from now, I might run. Like we are created to change and progress and challenge ourselves. And so when we all of a sudden have to decide on this path and we go to college and we take the courses and we get on this path and deep down inside, we're like, oh my God, but this looks cool. And I think I want to do that, but I already committed to this. This is my major and I'm going to get this job and I don't like this job and I'm here and I don't feel like I'm growing, but that's what everybody told you to do. And so we end up on this track where we become numb. And I feel that it's extremely damaging to our potential as humans and contributors to the world. We have so many gifts. And I'm so grateful to have had the paths and experiences that I've had in order to get me to this place that I am today. Because my entire business is designed around supporting people, creating businesses around what they love to do, not what someone else told them they are supposed to do, not based on the corporate ladder, not based on this trajectory that we were told we're supposed to be on in order to achieve success. And if college does not fit that for you, not going to college does not mean that you fail.
That's true.
Where I stand.
So if you had kids one day, what would you be your advice to them regarding college or regarding what to do after high school?
Exactly this. Like I support whatever you want to do. So my parents, I am so thankful and grateful for what they provided for me. They paid for my college. And I, looking back, feel that I wasted their money. And I wished that they had made me pay for it because maybe I would have made different decisions. Because I paid for my grad school and I even then, like I would, if I went back, like, I don't think I would go to grad school, but I understood what I had to do in order to be there. And I think I would make my kids pay for college, no matter how much money I have. If I'm a bajillion, they're still going to pay for it. I want to go there. And I would really just like, college is so old school. Like it is such an outdated concept that I would maybe even encourage them to say, like, go to a community college and take a few classes that interest you and figure out, is that the way that you want to learn things in life? And if it is, cool, go get a degree. There's nothing wrong with that. But that is not the one and only path, which is what I grew up believing.
Okay. Well, was going to college, was that like a mandatory thing or a mandatory expectation that your parents wanted for you? Or did you just allow, like you had to go?
Yeah. And like at 18, you're technically an adult. If I were to say, hey, I'm not going to college, they wouldn't have been able to stop me. But I think there would have been a lot of disappointment. And I wasn't willing to, I not only wasn't willing to like allow them to be disappointed in me, but I didn't even see not going as an option. It was just like, that's what I do.
They've painted that picture your whole life that you have to go to college.
Like my parents, my school, everyone, or all my peers. Like I remember the one person I don't know if he was the only one, but there was one person from my high school class that did not go to college. And that was weird, Now I look back, I'm like, dang, you were smart.
That's I guess for me, the one thing that we should be be more aware of today is like encouraging kids to be more self-aware, self-awareness. I think that's the key. Like you said, like, we're both giving our own perspective, opinion. Everybody has, if you're watching this, make your own decisions for your own life. But I feel like because I listen to a lot of content. I listen to a lot of entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneurs, they say, college is a waste of time. And then of course you talk to some successful people. They say, college is a big benefit for your future. But I feel like it really, really comes down to you just listening to yourself and knowing like the way you learn and the way you see things. Because the one thing I can't say is like, if you're the type of person that that the way the school system, the way they teach things like through books, through repetition. For me, like one thing about me, I learn things like hands-on. I struggle with sitting in a room and trying to focus my attention on the teacher, just talking about theory. Is like, I like to learn practically. I like to learn things on my own and through experience. And that's really, really hard for me. I guess I might have an ADD. I can't just sit in one spot. So I like to learn things on my own and just go out there and do it myself. And I learn faster with that. So I guess really, really depends on a lot of people. And I feel like for a lot of parents nowadays, I think, like you said, the culture now, everybody thinks that success is the only pathway to success. And obviously, if you're in 2021, you know that there's millions of different paths of success anybody can go. But I think for everybody, just understand self-awareness, self-awareness of how you learn, your mindset, what you do. And you talked about earlier, when you go to college, it's not really a great place where they prepare you for real life, because really the way they teach you, sitting and having, going to class, sitting, having tests, having, all these things. But when you go to real life, there's deadlines, there's expectations, there's things that they want things done. There's actually the added pressure. And I feel like I love what you said, how you said you would prefer them to go work first, try that out, and then see if, of course, because one thing about school, I think one thing that they don't really express a lot in culture, in today's culture, is like, you can always go to school later, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they always make it seem like if you don't go to school and be done by 2021, 22, 23, then it's too late.
Mm-hmm. And if you go to school later, you're like the old person.
The old person,
yeah.
Even like if you're like 25
yeah,
or 26.
Exactly. You're like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by all these kids.
Oh, hey, mom.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something, and I love, for me, like I say, self-awareness, but I like how you have what you suggested was like a perfect balance. You know what? Because that's one thing I always, if somebody always asks me, what do I want to do for my life? I always tell them, try different things. If you don't, because one thing I always tell people, like, life is a journey. Like, it's not a specific place, destination. Like, we just got to figure things out as we go throughout our life, journey. Like you said, we grow and become different as we grow as an adult. Some things you might like now, maybe 6 months from now, you might not like the same things because we've grown in that process. So I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's, it's always interesting to hear different perspectives of people regarding college and whether you should go to college. But I like how you had it where, you will actually encourage your kids to go work and see how that goes. If you like to work with your hands, get actual experience, and you're passionate about that, then that's a great path. But if you don't like, if you try it out, if you go work and it doesn't happen for you, then you can still go to college.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, if you are interested in a career path where college would be beneficial for you, like if you love law, you have to get a law degree to be an attorney.
Yeah.
And that is your path. Yeah. And again, I know a lot of lawyers who are now entrepreneurs or now doing other things.
Yeah.
And I think what school doesn't tell us is that we can always change our mind, and that experimentation is a positive trait, and like failure is a positive experience. And I think, as you said, like, awareness is so key. And what I wish was taught more to young people is sort of navigating the balance and like listening to your gut. Like in Hawaiian culture, your na'au is like all knowing. You have all the answers if you listen to the voice inside of you.
Yeah. And
like, and it's not necessarily like a magic 8 ball, like, should I go to college? Tell me yes or no. Like, it's not that easy sometimes, but it's a matter of like knowing, like following your inner knowing and being okay with the answer. So, because so many times we know, like, if you're in a situation and something's telling you, like, oh, this isn't right, or like, I have this all the time where somebody comes to me as a potential client, and I'm just like, I think it's a no. But we have this thing where, like, they're offering to pay you, so you should say yes. You know? And like, if I were to have nurtured that particular skill to listen to my own inner awareness, life would have been easier, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love how you said, like, you know, listen to your inner voice. And because a lot of people, it's really, really hard to do when you're 17. You're still trying to figure out yourself, figure out who you are. But that's something I always, I guess one thing I do know, being older now is like the reason why I feel like going to college or not going to college is a very big decision, because the one thing I value the most now is time. That's that's my number one. That's one thing I value more than anything is my time. And as you grow older, you realize how important time is and what you do with your time. And the reason why that's why I want to have this discussion, because I feel like 4 years of your life is a lot of time. Depending on what you want to do, whatever, and especially if you want to go to become a lawyer, if you want to go to grad school. But I feel like it's really important for a lot of people, especially a lot of kids, if you're watching this, to know what you really, really want. And also just to let you know, if you go to, I want to put this out there, if you go to college and you somehow change your mind, that's absolutely okay. If you go into for 6 months, for 1 year, and of course, like, there's always going to be the optics of people saying, oh, you failed or you dropped out of college. Bill Gates dropped out of college.
Yeah. And you still save money. Quit halfway through.
All right. But at least you tried, at least you tried and figured it out. If you don't have that voice within you, some people, that voice is very clear, very apparent as a young kid. Some people just know exactly what they want to do. The Elon Musks of the world, like, they know what to do at 17. They're out there killing and changing the world. But some people, we don't know how, if that voice is not really clear, then the only way you can literally figure out how things are is just through effort. You just try it out and see. And if you try something, doesn't work out, then try something else. If you try something, it does work out, keep doing it. It's just, common basics. But it's absolutely, for everybody out there, it's absolutely okay if you go in 1 year, 2 years into college and just realize it's not for you. I feel like it's really, but I just want to say it's okay. Yeah, it's okay to drop out.
If you realize it is for you, go all the way through, get your degree.
Go all the way through.
That's great. There's nothing wrong with a college degree. Yeah. And I think I forget to express that side of things, where everyone's like, oh, I heard this podcast and I'm not supposed to go to college if I'm not sure, but I actually really like it, but I don't want to say anything. Like, we're not here to shame anyone or
do what's best for you.
This is exactly. Yeah, totally.
Do what's best for you. And most importantly, I know a lot of people don't talk about, do what makes you happy. When you do something that when you do something within your purpose, within your path of life, that God has for you, like, you generally feel happiness in that path if you're aligned with it.
Totally. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
My gosh, because this is like really top of mind for me. So, and that to me is like equally the best advice and the most irritating advice on the planet. It's like, do what makes you happy. You're like, okay, like, what do I do with that? Right. Yeah. And I think that this is all about life is about building muscles.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, it's about training yourself to take actions that challenge you, that excite you, that create a path towards that thing that makes you happy today. Right.
Yeah.
So this example is like totally current for me. So I have had many businesses. I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur. They all technically failed if they're not still happening now, right?
Yeah.
But every single one of those led to where I am today. And I think I'm a horrible student. Like, the successful student, like, I totally failed that. But I pride myself on being able to now have the skills and really the courage to create systems and a business around things that light me up. And so currently I have Pualena Digital Design, which is because at this point in time, since I launched it a year ago, I decided I love the creative side of graphic design, web design. That's what I do. That's how I help people. And so for the past 8 months, I have made a life for myself by selling design services. People hire me, I build them websites, I create graphics for them, and then they're on their way.
Yeah.
And within the last month, I found myself extremely stressed out, extremely burnt out, working every waking moment of every day, giving up experiences, giving up time with my family, like things that should never happen. You should never, ever have to give up your happiness, your time, your experiences, your relationships for a job, no matter what it is. And I think we sort of get lost in the like, you have to hustle for what you want and hustle to get this and hustle. And then when you make it, then you can do things.
Yeah.
And it is so crucial to listen and to not just like power through these times, but become aware of these shifts in our mental state and our emotional state, and then do something about it. So what I'm doing right now is I realize like, I love design. I love to create. I love to do websites. Who do I love to do them for? I love to do them for myself.
Yeah.
I do not love to create websites and graphics for other people. I do not love feeling like I am their assistant. I do not love feeling like I'm their VA. I do not love feeling like I am there to serve them. And if they're unhappy with something that I spent 50 hours on, like it's somebody else may just thrive in that space. And I would never know that I didn't love this if I didn't try it. And so I'm shifting now more into a teaching space where I teach people how to do digital design. I teach people how to create online courses. And in teaching, I'm able to create promotional materials, landing pages, websites, courses for myself, which I think is super fun, and still serve the people that I want to serve, which is entrepreneurs, business owners, people that want to change the world.
Yeah.
That is still my ideal target audience, but I am no longer a slave to their projects. I then just empower, and they can pay me to teach them rather than paying me to do something for them. And without that awareness and sort of the permission that I don't actually need, but we all think that we need permission to like change our minds, I would probably just put my head down and suffer through it because I said I would.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important for people to understand.
Yeah. And also, I think, it's also it's very important for people to understand also, like, what works for other people, even though they're successful, may not be something that works for you. Sometimes, of course, that's the power of social media. We get to absorb so much content, so much knowledge from different type of entrepreneurs. And I love how you said, like, sometimes people think that the grind, they have to go through the grind, they have to go through pain and suffering. And that's part of the success. So people will purposely put them in a position of suffering and pain and ignoring their family, ignoring vacation time, spending time for themselves, because they think in their mind, that's what social media has, that's the culture of entrepreneurship. That's what they listen to. Okay, everybody says grind, 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 grind. So I guess I have to grind, 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 even though my internal voice or my happiness is telling me, no, I'm not happy right here, right? So it's really, really important to understand that when you listen to these people, when you listen to people that are successful, take that knowledge, but you should always have, this is my rule is, I always listen to people because that's the way you learn, but I always compare it to my own opinion. So if I listen to some successful entrepreneur, like if I talk to Elon Musk one day, Elon Musk says, hey, this is what you should do, I will take that information and compare it to my own opinion. Is this good for me? Because it worked for you, you've worked for him, but just, is this going to work for me? And is this going to make me happy? Because, everybody right now is trying to find their level of success, find what they want to do. But that's why it's I love what you said. It's very important to like listen to that voice and listen to your happiness. The intuition, you can call it intuition, you can call it gut, you can call it spirit. I don't know, depending on you, on your background. But one thing I do know is like you know what's good for you. Like what's good for you. So, but I do want to talk about that. Entrepreneurship for you. That's for me that's really inspiring. For you to have your own business, especially you just talked about your life story that you went to college, that didn't work out. Went to China, that didn't work out. And the fact that you've made it to this point, and of course you had multiple businesses, and those didn't work out. But a lot of people, that's part of the process. You have to I think there was a statistic. They said every entrepreneur has an average of 3-4 failures in their business before they actually launch the most successful one. Mm-hmm. So so what you did was normal to me for a lot of people.
And what I really love about what you said, and what I want to expand on for a second, is entrepreneurs, when we hear these successful people and their stories, and I clearly I'm guilty of it too. People love to focus on their success, and with all of the greatest intentions, they want to teach other people, get there faster and learn from my mistakes. And here's what I did to get where I am today. But it is very rare to hear of an entrepreneur sharing the true pain of the failures, because nobody goes into a business thinking I'm just going to let this be my failure business.
Yeah.
No. You always want it to be the one that's the successful one. And it is very challenging. It is very painful. It is very, and it can be fun. There's ups and downs, right? And it starts, it's I have this idea and I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to invest in it, and I'm going to do everything that I think is right, and I'm going to do all this research. This is going to be the one that makes it. And it usually is the one that makes it until it's not. Right. And it's people don't openly, it's either they don't openly share because they don't want to, but I think more it's, they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to tell you all about the things that didn't work, when they could share all the things that did work, that allowed them to create the success that they have. And so I always want to just remind people that we are always doing our best. Every day we wake up and we're I'm just going to put my best foot forward and do what I feel is right to create a life for myself that fulfills me in every way that I have control over. And if we're not doing that, then it's time to reassess. But if you are, release the judgment, don't compare yourself to other people, and know that what you do today shapes who you are tomorrow and what you do tomorrow. And there is no success or failure. There is just learning, and there is just growth and progression. And really, in my mind, I define failure as not trying.
Yeah.
Right. If you have these ideas and you never take
giving up. That's what failure is, giving up.
Yes, quitting. Yeah. Totally. And even then, it's still just a learning experience, right? Because in the last business I had, it was amazing. It was so fun. I had a business partner and we had a blast. And it took us 4 difficult years to pull the plug on it and be you know what? It's time to try something different. And that decision is very, very, very difficult. And I think part of being an entrepreneur and part of learning is creating those experiences and those failures for yourself, because everybody told me all the things. Everyone told me a lot of what we learned, but I didn't hear it in the same way as when I experienced it. So don't be afraid of something not working, because there are lessons whether it works or not. And I think if we were to learn in school, if we were to be guided through exercises that encourage us to try something new and fail at it, and try another thing and try another thing, and sort of build that muscle of being okay with something not working out, and also knowing how to continue running with the momentum of something that is working. Right? Because we sort of get stuck both ways. We're oh God, this didn't work. When do I quit? I don't know. I quit. And then you're oh, now what? I don't want to move forward. This sucks. I feel so terrible about myself. And then there's the other side where you're like, oh my God, this is working. How do I keep it going? I don't know. What do I do? And then you kill it. Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
there's those two different directions, and they're two extremes, but it's just an interesting journey. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, it's absolutely agree, because I guess, everybody knows, that the saying, right? Failure is part of success. It's not opposite success. You have to, if you're not failing, you're not trying. You're not trying hard enough, right? There is no success without failure. So I guess the one thing I do realize about college, because we talked about college, the reason why a lot of college students struggle with real life, because the way we learn in college is very linear, right? There's a controlled test. We are given answers. We learn these answers, and we're given a test of the questions are given. You just gotta learn one answer. We already know, once you know that answer, it's just for that one question. So everything we learn in school and that trajectory, right, is very linear, right? If you complete this class and complete these classes on freshman year, then you go to sophomore year, complete this class sophomore year. So it's like just a linear path all the way to graduation. But the sad reality when you hit the real world is there is no linear path when it comes to success. It's like this. All right. So, and a lot of people struggle with that because their whole life they've been conditioned. If they just learn these books, if they just know these answers, then everything is going to work out. But the reality of entrepreneurship or of real life, sometimes, we don't know the answers. Sometimes we don't know the questions of the answers we're trying to figure out, and we just got to figure things out on the go. I do want to ask you this question because I realized today entrepreneurship is something like, I remember I used to listen, I forgot who it was, like a lot of people, like entrepreneurship today is it's like a cultural thing now. Like people want to be entrepreneurs now. That's why when I listen to a lot of motivational speakers, I love the ones like you mentioned that are very transparent. They don't only talk about the success, but they also talk about the failures, the pains, the days when they didn't have anything, the days that they did want to quit. There's a lot of days that entrepreneurs and people in general, we want to quit, but we almost did, but we found it within us to keep going. And I also love the entrepreneurs that not only just share their life experience, but they also advise the people, the listeners, hey, look, this is my experience, this is my story. Make your own damn decision. Do what's best for you. So I do want to ask you, I do see this within this culture, a lot of people are trying to be entrepreneurs. And the thing is, like, I feel like for me, I want to ask you this question. Can anybody become an entrepreneur? Do you believe that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes? You feel like any... Go ahead. Got it. Is it for everybody? Is entrepreneurship for everybody? Or should there... Yeah.
So I want people to understand that anybody can be an entrepreneur, but nobody should be an entrepreneur for the sake of being an entrepreneur.
Got you.
Like that I see what you're saying. And I'm just in this world so much that I often lose sight of the people who are not yet business owners and who are out there wanting to be, because it's sort of like glorified and you get like...
It's a trend now. It's a trend. It's a trend now. Everybody just puts CEO on their profile. Hey, I'm a CEO. I'm an entrepreneur. It's a cool thing to do now.
Yep. And you're like, I'm free to travel and I do whatever I want and I make a ton of money and I buy cars and blah, blah, blah. And it's this like, right? Like, you're like, oh, it's the same thing. Like, I want to be a movie star. I want to be, a rocket, an astronaut. Like, we have these desires because of the filtered lifestyles and sort of the glamorous stuff that we see around this particular label. Mm-hmm. And entrepreneur is just that. It's just a label. It's just a box that we put these kinds of people in that do things like make their own money. And if you want to change the world, if you want to teach people, if you want to provide a solution to a problem, if you want to create a product that makes people's lives easier, better, happier, more fun, do that and let that be your intention and your motivator. Because if you're doing that, you're an entrepreneur, but you are not striving to be an entrepreneur and then figuring out what you need to do to become an entrepreneur. People who are business owners solve problems.
Yeah.
And if you're a problem solver and if you're passionate about an idea that you have or knowledge that you want to share, that is the sign of a true entrepreneur. And that is somebody that you want to guide to this space and nurture and provide the tools and resources and connections and networks and communities to achieve that vision. So I would love to bust the myth that becoming an entrepreneur is the be all end all goal.
So, so it's safe to say that you believe that anybody can do it, but it's not for everyone. Is that safe to say? Because I give you this example. Anybody could become an NBA basketball player, but it's not for everyone. That's where self-awareness. Yeah. That's where self-awareness comes on. I mean, I love to play basketball, but obviously I know my limitations as a person. I can't compete being an NBA basketball player. Right.
Totally. So, and I think you make a really good point. And I think that there are, I hesitate to answer that because I never like to make people feel excluded or like, if you're like, oh, I don't,
it's not,
but I know that's not what you're saying. And
it's reality.
I agree with you. And I think that there are levels of this, right? And like to be in the NBA, like you either make it or you don't.
Yeah.
And even there, like some of those players are so talented. They've all worked their butts off to get there. They have worked their entire lives. Like, you see the game and you're like, oh my God, they're amazing. But we don't see the practices. We don't see the failures, the nights where they're crying and they're like beat down and they're tired and they're sore. We don't see that. And the same with entrepreneurship. Like I'm never going to post when I'm $50,000 in debt and I'm crying because I don't understand how I'm going to make this work. And yet I've been there, and that's not a place of shame. It's just a part of the journey. And if you are not willing to risk that, like that's a risk that you take when you become an entrepreneur. You let go of your paycheck. You let go of the certainty of having someone else give you money in exchange for a job that you do for them. Mm-hmm. And to me, if you're willing to accept that as a risk, keeping your own financial well-being in your own hands, then maybe entrepreneurship is not for you. But I also think that there is a sort of unhealthy fear around leaving your job and leaving a steady paycheck. And I went through it too very recently. Mm-hmm, I was employed and I was afraid to leave, even though I had already been an entrepreneur. I had already understood the power of creating your own wealth. And yet I was scared to leave a paycheck.
Yeah.
So I would say that anybody has the potential to be a business owner, but it's assessing your sort of your risk. What is it called? There's a word for it. They use it in like investing.
Risk management?
Yeah, it's your risk tolerance.
Risk tolerance. Okay.
How much are you willing to
risk?
Lose
to tolerate? To
gain potentially an unlimited amount of experience, knowledge, money, happiness, time. And to me, that is well worth the risk. I would never, ever not do something for fear of not achieving those things, because I know that I hold the power, the knowledge, the resources, the resourcefulness to get myself to a place that I want to be. But if you are not willing to put yourself in that position, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like, and this is something I always hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, they say it doesn't matter what you do in life, whether you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, mother, raising kids in a family, or if you want to be an entrepreneur. I feel like, every individual would create it different. I feel like we all have different DNA specifically made for, depending who you are, that's made for whatever purpose you want to achieve for your life. When you ever talk to entrepreneurs, I always say, entrepreneurship, you just got to have that entrepreneurship DNA, that those traits that if you have those certain traits, those are the people that actually make it. That's what separates the people that really become successful entrepreneurs, right? And you talked about one of them, and if you like problem solvers, like people that on a problem, if you struggle with solving problems, and if you're like negative as hell, all you see is you focus more on the problem, not the solution. Maybe that's something that's a sign for you. That's not for you. And also, just want to put it out there, like whatever you choose in life, whatever it's entrepreneurship, like sometimes society puts puts certain professions on a pedestal where we feel like that if we're not a business owner, that we kind of diminish our own value as an individual. There's nothing wrong with being like working for somebody. Just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there right now that work for companies and they're still millionaires and successful.
And they're happy.
And they're happy, right?
Totally. And again, it comes back to awareness.
Self-awareness. Yep.
Self-awareness and like alignment with your values. And I think if you are able to find a position that aligns with your values, and that's across the board, right? If you value family, if you value a positive environment, if you value money, if you value, and all of these things can be important to people. When you hit the jackpot and you find a job that aligns with all of those,
you're good.
Like
you're winning. You won.
Awesome. And as soon as you feel any of that coming out of alignment, because that's the other thing, we can start something, we can start a business, we can start a job, we can start an initiative that feels good at the time. And then we stay there because it was the right move and now it's not, but we forget that we can choose a different path.
Yeah.
So
so I know there's a lot of people right now that confused, right? Like because I have friends all the time. They want to be business owners, but I tell them, and I say this with bottom of my heart, I tell them, look, you're not meant for entrepreneurship. And I tell them with the bottom, but I have my criteria of how I know when somebody's not ready for entrepreneurship. So I want to ask you, are there any certain traits that people have or certain things that you feel like that you got to have as an entrepreneur? And if anybody out there, if you don't have this, well, I guess I can share mine, and then you can add your opinion. But for me, if you don't thrive in uncertainty, if you can't work under uncertainty, if you can't maintain a level of focus or discipline or peace in uncertain situations, because that's what entrepreneurship is. You put yourself in a situation because, like I said, when you work for a company, you're getting that guaranteed paycheck. Everything's guaranteed. You have your place with the office where you work, it's guaranteed. Waking up tomorrow, you have an office space, you have a location to go to, you have a job, so you have security. But when you go into the path of entrepreneurship, you're literally going into the unknown when nothing is guaranteed. There is no security. But you have to go out there and make things happen for yourself and figure those things out. So I always tell a lot of people, when I meet a lot of people, when I see them in situations that's very uncertain and they can't handle it and there's a lot of pressure, I always tell them all the time, like, maybe entrepreneurship is not built for you. And I feel like your level of how the way you respond to situations, especially if you can't handle uncertain situations, being in a place of uncertainty, because like you said, you build a business for 4 years with your business partner. Like how long have you been an entrepreneur right now? How long have you been doing it?
Probably 7 or 8 years now.
I'm saying that's 7 to 8 years of uncertainty right there.
Yeah, totally.
Right. But like I said, what's funny is like with entrepreneurs, we don't like being like, for me, like being in when I'm in uncertain situation, I don't feel uncertain. I feel pretty confident. And it's funny, like you've done it for 7 to 8 years, but for a lot of people, like 7 to 8 years in a place where nothing's guaranteed, that's like, that'll literally tear them down, especially if somebody's like state of mind. So that's the way I see it for a lot of people. When people ask me, or I see I have friends or meet people, and I see like when it comes to adversity, when it comes to struggle, when it comes to challenges, when it comes to not having that guaranteed paycheck, not having that money coming in, and you literally don't know what to do. How are you going to feed yourself the next day? But you're still able to stay you're still able to stay focused and figure out a solution and still make decisions and move forward. That's what I know. Like, okay, this person can be an entrepreneur. But if you forward, you're under the pressure and it's just too much, and the uncertainty for you is just you can't thrive off it. That's the way I judge people, based on like, okay, this is what you should do. Especially when people come up to me and ask me, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to do for myself, and I give them my honest opinion. But for you, If anybody out there that's trying to, that want to have no idea, they don't have that self-awareness for themselves to figure out whether they want to become an entrepreneur or not. Like, what's your way of like, what's your standard of like, okay, this is what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
So I will lovingly disagree and say, like, I would never tell someone that they are not meant to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because until you try, how do you know how you handle there are different types of reactions.
I wouldn't tell them, like, I'm sorry to cut you off. I wouldn't tell them. I just ask them, do you like uncertainty? Like, how do you, I'll just ask them that question. Like, do you like to be in uncertain situations? Like, is that something that you can thrive on? Is that something you can be at peace with? And that's the question they need to ask themselves. So I won't tell them you can't never do it, because I don't believe in that. But I'll tell them, no, if you look within your soul and know that you don't like being uncertain, you don't like being in situations where there's nothing that's guaranteed, then that's the answer that's the answer that you should be looking for. And okay, this is not for me, right?
Yeah.
So, but I don't tell them directly, okay, you can't do it. I always ask them, do you would you be able to live? Say, like, what's the average business it takes, like, for a business to really thrive is like 3 to 5 years. I think like the statistic is like 80% of business die within the first year, and then 8%, 5 years later, another 80% dies after 5 years. So I always tell people, if you can't live can you live a life of uncertainty for at least 3 to 5 years? And if you know you can do that as a person, and you know yourself, oh, cool. Well, I'll support you. You can do it. But if you know you can't live an uncertain life for 3 to 5 years and not relying on a paycheck and figure things on your own, that should be a sign to you to know on your own self-awareness that may not be the life for you. But yeah, I just want to put it out there.
I totally see that. I think we live in a day and age now where it's a little bit different, and I think people can sort of dabble with their idea and maybe they don't quit their job quite yet, and they do a little side hustle.
Yeah.
And they sort of, I think there's a way to go about it that can reduce the amount of uncertainty once you pull the trigger and sort of burn the boats and go all in on it.
Yeah.
And I think that there are different levels of tolerance in different situations. And so somebody who may have an idea sort of like brewing and it's just simmering in there, and they perhaps react a certain way in their job or in their life that may raise a red flag in the realm of entrepreneurship, but perhaps it's being triggered from some sort of external trauma of like, they don't get along with their boss. And so that's why they have these reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were to be doing that in their business, serving clients in a way that lights them up, perhaps that reaction would be totally different. And so for anybody who would approach me and say like, hey, am I meant to be an entrepreneur? Can I do this? I would shift the conversation a little bit and say like, what is your idea? Why does this new venture excite you? And again, like, I don't want people to focus on entrepreneurship as the goal. I want you to focus on what problem do you solve? What idea do you have? How do you want to make the world a better place? What group of people do you want to support through this idea?
Mm-hmm.
And then creating the channels for support and resources to bring that to life, whether it is like, okay, quit your job next week and go all in and make that commitment to yourself and commitment to the universe. And that takes a very high tolerance to risk to do something like that. Mm-hmm. But if you have a sort of more conservative viewpoint and say like, well, I have a family to feed, I have a lot of things that rely on me bringing in this money, I would say, okay, cool. Let's dip our toe in the water. So what I teach is, and this is not like my thing, it's out there. You can Google it. It's called an MVP, and it's a minimum viable product. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially testing your idea to see if people will pay money for it. Yeah. And if somebody will invest in the solution that you have, whether that's through coaching, an online course, a product, a service, if somebody's willing to pay you for it, it's probably a good idea and you can probably scale it. Yeah. And there's the thing about this entrepreneurial world is it's very noisy. There is so much, like, again, like, you don't need to go to college to learn how to be an entrepreneur. You need to know how to sort of comb through the information that you Google, that you find on YouTube, and like all of these resources out there, and figure out and be able to listen to yourself and say, like, whose advice and whose personality, whose communities do I personally resonate with, and who do I want to learn from? And start to invest, whether it's time, money, resources, into learning from the people who you admire, who you look up to, who are doing similar things in the world to what you want to be doing. And that's a beautiful way to ease yourself into this world of owning your own business, owning your own gifts, taking your own financial health and wealth into your own hands without like totally going all out, which is what I did the first time. I quit my jobs and I was like, I'm doing this. And I had no plan. I had like my business partner and I had the best intentions, but we just like blindly felt our way through this world. And if I could go back and talk to the Pua of 8 years ago, I would be like, so I would hold on to this job a little bit longer. A little bit more research, like create something to sell first before you leave all of your sources of income. But again, I learned. I'm here still. I've been in massive debt and I've been able to come back out of it. It's like, you can always make more money. And if that's the thing that's holding you back, take a little baby step in the direction that you want to go in. And know that you're supported. Like, reach out to us, reach out to Will, reach out to me, and share your desires with us. Because I think also having a community or a support system to just be there and say, like, you got this, just give it a try. You can do it. And we don't need that permission. We can make whatever decision we want. But a lot of times it feels like we do, and we just need someone to tell us, go ahead, give it a try, you know? So, yeah.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Yeah. You know, I like your method. It's very more supportive.
I'm telling you, it's most like I'm like overly optimistic about everything. So if you ever need a little boost,
for me, it's just like, you know, because like I said, I have a lot of friends. They always bring me ideas, and for me, it's like I always tell, because I always believe everything starts with oneself. You know, everything starts with you. Whatever success, happiness, love, whatever. I feel like, you know, whenever I always tell people, whenever I try to fix a problem in my life, I always look within. I always start from the inside out. You know, so I always start within. Ask myself the questions before I try to figure out anything that's on the outside. And the same thing with a lot of people. And for me, it's just I mean, like I said, for me, like, entrepreneurship, it's just a DNA you gotta have. And then certain, like you said, for you, you went through your process for 4 years and didn't work out, and you left and you just jumped in there. That's how like I said, but like I said, you know, when you have the entrepreneur spirit, like, that's the kind of mentality we have. We just go in there and we figure things out. And for a lot of people, I forgot there was a great example, but the fact that
and I will say too, I didn't do that the second time.
Yeah, you learned from it, right?
I did, and I also, there was trauma, and it created fear. And so after the business I had with my business partner, I got a job because I did have so much debt, and I was just exhausted. I was exhausted of trying to make a business work. I didn't want to hustle for clients. I didn't want to guess where my next sum of money was coming from. And I got a job, and it didn't fulfill me in the same way that having a business fulfilled me. And so it was confirmation that I had exactly what you're talking about, that like deep inner desire to be an entrepreneur. And so the second time around, I launched my business on the side until it grew so big that I could not actually handle both anymore. And that's when I quit. And that's really the path that I would recommend to people, unless you either have an investor, unless your parents are like, I will pay for you to create this business and I will invest in your dreams. Like, quit your job immediately and take them up on it because that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Or, if you have like a foolproof plan, but most entrepreneurs kind of figure it out as they go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will say that I burned the boats once. And then the second time around, I was too scared to do it as quickly, but I still did it. But
So I want to ask you, like, how do you handle adversity? How do you handle failure? I guess
not well.
Everybody learns it. It's everybody deals it with a different way. But I want to ask you, do you have a process for yourself? Well, can you talk about how you dealt with failure in the beginning when you were still like when you're still a newbie, like you were green, and
Yeah.
then how do you deal with failure today? Can you talk about that?
So I am a very proud person. I am a very motivated person. I do not give up. I do not quit. I will figure things out. I am a problem solver. And that is both probably like my best qualities and my worst qualities, because when something isn't working, I will not let it go. And I think we should have quit our business a year before we actually did. And my business partner and I think both share that quality. And we were just not willing to give up. And we weren't willing to admit to ourselves that this wasn't working. And I do not handle failure well. Like, I am super hard on myself. I get very depressed. I get very like disappointed and discouraged. And I think those are things that I'm working to sort of be gentler on myself with and understand and recognize the lessons. Looking back, like, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't learn what I learned then. Obviously, like that's how this works. And rarely can we see the lessons and understand the benefits at the time in our current situations. And even to this day, like, I'm like, okay, where's the lesson? Where's the lesson? Oh my God, I know it's here somewhere. And like, I don't know. I definitely feel for people who fear failure because they don't handle it well, because I am that person. So I'm a work in progress when it comes to handling failure, but I will say that I welcome it more now than I did before, because I feel that I can recognize it and see it coming and like be okay letting go of an idea that's not working, instead of trying to force it because I'm too proud to say that this doesn't work. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a very interesting topic. I want to go into that. When you said that you had to give up a business with your partner, right? Because it wasn't working. There's a lot of people out there right now that are very stubborn. They will not quit, because that's also what we learn. Growing up. If you consume entrepreneurship content, that's always the narrative, right? Never quit, never quit, never quit. Keep going, keep going, keep going. But I feel like there is, like you said, self-awareness to know when something isn't working. So, what is your advice to everybody out there? Like, how do you know when to quit? Because that's really, really hard, right? But but that's the reality. There's some things, especially when it comes to business, that you have to have the self-awareness. Okay, I can't continue this because it's not either profitable no more, or it's not working out no more, and you have to try something else. But that's a really, really hard decision, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're very determined.
Totally.
You're very determined. So for everybody out there, can you give advice, like your perspective, your opinion? How do you know as an entrepreneur that, okay, what are the signs, or that you see that, okay, this is a sign, okay, I need to quit and try something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because it's important, and it's also situational.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for us, a red flag all along was that we were always in debt, and it was very difficult for us to sell our service.
Okay.
And I think that at a certain point, like, you always sort of get these little glimmers of hope, right? Like, you don't get a client for 3 months and then you get one paid in full $6,000. And you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, it is a good idea.
Yeah.
When you really need to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, but that's 4 months and one client, like something doesn't match up. And for us to really, so I firmly believe in identifying patterns and letting that be a way to assess and reassess and reassess. And you don't identify patterns without self-awareness. And so I have a planner that actually my business partner and I created, and we've been sort of revamping it every year since then. And it's geared around asking yourself impactful questions. And it's that Tony Robbins quote of like, the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of the questions that you're willing to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And so creating self-awareness around, and this is a weekly process, right? Like what's working, what's not working, what do I love, what do I not love, how do I feel, what are my energy levels like, what can I reassess, can I outsource something, like creating all of these awarenesses around every part of our life can expedite the process of identifying the things that are working and are not working. And the faster and better and more accurate we can get at identifying those things, better and more efficiently we can shift around them. And I think what we failed to do was take that bigger step back and sort of look at the big picture and be like, okay, this was a great idea and it worked in these ways, but in this way it is absolutely not working. And do we fix it? Do we change it? Or do we let it go? And so being willing to ask, not just ask yourself the questions, but honestly answer them, I think are the two things that are helpful.
Yeah. So you said the debt, that was a sign right there. You guys realize, okay, we're getting too much in debt right now. So I do want to ask you, looking back at it now, do you feel like, because you said that you sold one service for like $6,000?
Yeah. So that was our like signature program. And I will say, like, we had an awesome program.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
This thing was the bomb. So it was an 8-week sort of coaching program. And while you went through that program and learned how to build your business and set everything up, and you learned like productivity hacks and learned how to set up your CRM and your email manager. And we also built your entire suite of digital services for you. So it was this amazing offer. Like I was obsessed with it. And I was like, who wouldn't buy this? It was literally saved like thousands of dollars by letting us help you. But it was a very, very difficult sell. And the other thing was by the time we created this, we were in such a deep hole of debt that we didn't have the money or the faith in ourselves to invest in things like advertising, or basically we weren't able to pay for anything. And in this world, like you have to invest a little bit, like you got to pay to play. And you can utilize organic reach, organic marketing. You can lean on your community, your networks up to a certain point. But by that time, it was 4 years of them hearing from us, selling to them. But we weren't willing to invest in growing our network. So I think those two things, like the inability for us to talk about this in a way that encouraged people to invest in it, and then also our unwillingness and our inability to expand our circle, sort of led to our eventual dissolving of our company. But yeah, I mean, it's just a timing thing too.
Yeah.
It's
So you guys had a great idea. It was just like the strategy of the way you guys executed the idea.
Yeah. And I think at the end, we sort of it wasn't in alignment anymore with what we wanted to do and how we wanted to serve. Like, I never really wanted to do coaching, and my business partner, like, that's all she wanted to do. She didn't like the digital design part of it. So we were like polar opposites trying to combine forces and create this like monster service, which was wonderful. But at the end of the day, like, if I don't believe in the coaching and she doesn't believe in the digital marketing or the digital media, there was misalignment that sort of led us to our own paths. So she does coaching now. She has her own business. It's beautiful. It's really amazing. And then I have my digital design company. And that really, I think our business together was our path to creating what we have now. So, I mean, it's all really positive, and I think the experiences serve us still. But yeah.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. You guys getting the experience, so you guys can go your separate ways. But speaking of partners, I think that's a topic a lot of people always want to ask themselves, like, whether they should start a business by themselves as a sole proprietor, or should they get a business partner. So I want to ask you two questions. Should you get a partner, or should you just try to do things on your own? And number two is, if you do get a partner, how do you, what are the things you should look for as far as in a partner?
Yeah, good questions. We got asked this all the time.
Yeah.
And we worked super well together. And I think it really is a matter of making sure that your values are in alignment with each other. That at the end of the day, if you like someone as a person and you value similar things, it most likely will work out. And we were able to sort of speak honestly to each other, and we just had a very positive, open communication-based relationship. And not everybody is so lucky. And I think a lot of people go into business with a business partner with great intentions, and it ends really badly. And again, that's not one of those things that you can necessarily foresee.
Yeah.
You can see red flags. And if you, again, listen to your gut and listen to the signs and say, oh my God. And that's also a super difficult conversation, right? I don't know if this is working out. It's so hard. Business partnerships and that whole world is just it's another thing. You have to be willing. If you want to go into business with someone, make sure that it's not because you're too scared to do it alone. Make sure it's because you know that you will.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
That's really good. Yeah.
Let it be because you will elevate each other's services and skills and knowledge. You'll fill gaps for each other, not because you just want someone to do it with you.
Because you feel like a lot of people undervalue their own ability. They feel like they need somebody else. Yeah.
I leaned on my partner so much, and I'm grateful that she had also had other businesses, and she was a little bit more experienced too in just financial management and business, the whole thing. She had just done it longer than I had. And so she sort of was our leader, and she guided us through, and she did a beautiful job. And again, we were better together than we were apart for a long time. And that should be the foundation of a business partnership. And I may not be the best person to speak on this, because there's a lot of advice out there saying make sure that there is one clear leader. There should be a 51-49 split. There should always be three of you. There's that kind of advice too.
Yeah.
Especially for a nonprofit, legally, you actually have to have 3 founders.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of advice out there, and I'll just share my experience, but I think I was lucky that it was really positive through the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I know. Yeah. That's all I got to say about that.
It's all good. Yeah. So I want to ask you, if anybody that's watching right now, they want to get into your industry, they want to do what you're doing right now, what's your advice for them? To start off?
I would say get very clear on your why. Why do you want to do this?
Why is that? Why is the why important? Just for everybody out there.
That is what will motivate you every single day. And the why doesn't have to be the what. And oftentimes it's not, right? So a lot of times, maybe the why is I want to help my community with this thing. And so I've created this service. So the why in that specific instance is linked to your business. But sometimes your why is I want to spend more time with my family, so I want to work from home. Or I want to make $25,000 a month so that I can take my family on vacations, or so I can buy a car. It doesn't matter what the why is, but just have that in your mind, because that will motivate you every day. And the other thing is figure out that one thing that you do. What is the end goal for the people that you serve, for the product that you have, the solution that you hold, the problem that you solve? What is that thing? Because the clearer you can get on that thing, the easier everything else is that comes under it. And what I mean is, let's say, so for me, like today, my one thing is providing resources for entrepreneurs who want to create online courses.
Yeah.
That is my thing. And so everything I do, social media, my own course, my Facebook group, my email marketing, the coaching programs that I invest in for myself, all of that needs to fuel this thing. And if I don't have clarity about what this is, I'm going to start to take courses on like, oh, how do I grow my Instagram channel? Oh, how do I do a YouTube channel? Oh, how do I do this? And these are all great. But why am I growing my Instagram channel when I want to serve course creators? And if I can link it, that's fine. But if I can't, I shouldn't worry about that. Even though everybody will tell you, if you want to make it in business, you have to grow your Instagram channel. You're going to hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to really like sift out the noise and stay focused on your one thing and do whatever you need to do to get this thing to fruition.
Yeah. So I love how you mentioned why, and I want to take that a little bit step further, because this is something I always tell a lot of people, especially because nowadays a lot of people, I realize, especially the younger generation, a lot of people don't really know themselves or don't know who they are. So when it comes to why, the one thing I always tell people is make sure that it's your why. Because sometimes a lot of people don't realize that the why they have is the why that is their parents' why, it's their friends' why. So whenever people tell me like, what's your why? I want to make a difference in this world. And I always ask them, is that really what you want to do? Or is that what your parents want you to do? Is that what your family expects you want to do? And I feel like for me, I remember when I started on my path, before I decided to leave my job, but I remember I did door-to-door sales for 7 years. And then I remember when I started on that path to make money, I realized that I thought my why in life was to take care of my family. I wanted to provide for my family, to make sure they're taken care of. And I remember when I finally was able to financially take care of my family in a way that I could like take care of them financially, didn't have to worry about money no more. And then I just lost all inspiration because I accomplished it. Right. Then I realized making money and taking care of my family wasn't really what I really wanted to do. It was something I thought it was, but I realized that's what I wanted to do, to take care of my family. That was a need for my family. It wasn't a need for me. So once I finally became successful enough to financially take care of my family, I literally went through a phase where like I lost all motivation. I didn't even know what to do with my life. So, and then that's when I really asked myself, what do I really want to do? And then that's when I got into like, motivational speaking, content creating, helping people, inspiring people, talking to people, podcasting. That's what I was really passionate about. And that was my real why, that I wanted to serve people. And the way I wanted to serve people was through content, was through motivation, inspiring, connecting people through social media or any other platform. So yeah, that's something I just want to ask people, because a lot of people have asked, what's my why? I want to make money. I want to be successful. I want to buy a big house. I want to, live that dream. And I always have to clarify with it. Is that really what you want? Or is that what your family needs? Is that what your parents need? Is that what you need? So I just wanted to add that to it, because
that's good.
Yeah, because sometimes our why is not really our own why. It's not really our why. It's somebody else's why that has been told to us ever since we were kids, or depending on the situation or socioeconomic situation that you're in. So a lot of things we will want to be successful for money, but that's not really our true passion and purpose in life.
And it can change, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So the planner that we have it's a weekly check-in, and we also have like a quarterly check-in called a big vision. And that's to just make sure that what you do every week is still in alignment with your big vision, for your life, because that can change. And sometimes we've achieved it and we forget that we've achieved it. And then we're shooting for this why that no longer is sort of appropriate. And then things, so.
All right. So, I do want to ask you, because I could, just having the conversation with you, I take a lot of notes, by the way. I got take a lot of notes. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to pick your mind for today. You brought so much knowledge, so much content, so much value today for everybody that's listening. But I do want to ask you, because I always believe like everything starts with a mind. Everything in life starts with a mindset. And that's why I believe anybody can be successful, because you just gotta have the right mindset. And I want to ask you, what do you have? What books have you read, or what resources have you learned, or anything that has to do with your mindset? But I'm very interested in the books that you've read that has made a big impact to you. And can you list those, say 3 books, and then talk about the one that had the most impact for you?
Yeah, for sure. So 2 books come to mind right now. I'm having trouble identifying a third. But
Okay.
There's a book called Essentialism. I'm really bad with names. Like, I don't remember celebrity names, so I obviously don't remember book authors, which is horrible. And I also don't remember artists. So please forgive me. But it's called, I believe it's called Essentialism. And it's basically like the one thing, right? Like, and again, it's sort of this idea of like, what is the one thing, and what is distracting you from that, and what can you let go of in order to refocus your attention to that one thing. And that really helped me in all areas of my life, of course, in business, but also like in my personal life. I love to just be a part of different things. And at one point I was like paddling, doing CrossFit, doing jiu-jitsu, hula. Like, I just wanted to try everything. And I was so, it's like a jack of all trades or a master of none, right? It's like, what do I want to really get good at? What excites me? And the hard part is like, I really did love all of those things.
Yeah.
And I knew I could be good at any of them, but while I was doing all of them, I was good at none of them. And so it's sort of that, like, at this particular phase in your life, what can you essentialize? Knowing that you can change, you can shift. So that was a book that I love, and I listen to the audiobook probably once a year. I also love, I think it's called, the full title is Punch Fear in the Face and Start. I think it's John Acuff.
Punch Fear in the Face and Start.
Yeah, I think so. It's red and white, and there's start in big letters on the cover. And that one was really what kickstarted my mindset around taking action. And at the time I read it because I was looking for motivation to start a business. But at this point, I realized that everything is triggered by action. And we go from I want to do this to I am doing this by taking an action. And it's a very simple concept, but it's very, we get stuck in like actually executing it. And so it's a great book to sort of motivate you to take small actions to achieve a big vision. And then there's a book called The 10X Rule, which is
but Crank Cardone.
Yeah. And it's just like consistency. Like, these are all 10X. Things that we know. It's not new information, but you just hear it in a different way. And it's just about like, how do you 10X that one thing to 10X your results and create consistent action, which creates consistent results. And so those are 3 books that sort of came to the top of my mind just now.
No, I love the one you brought, essentialism, right? Be great at one thing, right? Because I feel like a lot of people, especially the younger people like to dab. Try this. And also something I always hear a lot of times, especially when it comes to entrepreneurs, they always say have multiple streams of income, right? So I feel like sometimes that narrative of does a disservice for a lot of young people, because when they hear multiple streams of income, they think that they have to try different things, or they have to open like 5-6 businesses at the same time. But they don't realize that those entrepreneurs that have multiple streams of income, they actually were good at one thing, made a lot of money in that one specific income, and then they were able to diversify into multiple streams. But originally, their source of income came from one really thing they were good at. And and I see I see a lot of people all the time, like they're like every 2-3 months they're opening up another business. They think it's all about like quantity, not about quality. But yeah, but if you listen to a lot of people, if you see entrepreneurs, they always talk about that. Like you have to be a master of your craft. Like you have to be a man. You have to know everything about that one. So whatever you choose, learn it and try to master it, because it is competition. At the end of the day, you're gonna compete with other people in business. And I should have added that. That trait when it comes to like self-awareness. You have to be competitive. some
Not
kind of
necessarily. I firmly believe that competition does not exist in business.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not.
Can you elaborate on that?
Especially as an entrepreneur. Sorry, I'm like, so it's getting hot here in the afternoon. I have socks on. I have to take these off.
No, just to clarify myself, when I say competition, I don't mean like competing with other people. I mean like you should have a natural desire to want to do better than who you were yesterday. You want to compete with yourself.
Okay, that I can agree with. Competing with yourself, I'm super on board with.
Yeah.
Competing against other people in your industry.
No, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting concept that can be true, but also creates a lot of wasted energy.
Yeah.
Because you are trying to be better than someone that is not you. And the goal is to attract your ideal customers, and attract is the key word.
Yeah.
And so when we're trying to compete against someone else, we're essentially trying to take their competition or take their clients away from them for ourselves.
Yeah.
But their clients have resonated with their personality and their message.
Yeah.
And so, right? It's like, but that is something that I think it's sort of a misconception, and they're like, well, who's my competition? And it's good to know who else is in your industry and who else is in your space.
Yeah.
And seeing them as a colleague, right? Like, okay, cool. I don't think I'm a good fit for you, but I've seen this person do great work. I recommend giving them a call.
Yeah.
And so we're able to share the abundance rather than like hoard it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I'm glad I clarified that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like
like you have to, like as an entrepreneur, you have this, like you can't just sit still. You can't just be stagnant. Like you have this natural urge, I gotta keep progressing, keep competing with myself, see what I can change, see what I can adjust to keep better. Some people, because there's some people out there in the world that just they like being the same, like the same life over and over. But as an entrepreneur, of course you understand business. Business world keeps changing, so you have to change with your market. But every single person I've ever met that was an entrepreneur, that was a successful entrepreneur, they always had the natural desire, like I can't stay still, like I gotta keep moving, I keep getting better, and which is why like that natural competition of just wanting to be better, a version of yourself every single day, and even for me, like I. Like if I get when I live my lifestyle and I feel like it's getting redundant, I actually get nervous. And I was like, okay, when I get anxiety, I know I've been doing things too commonly. I need to change something, which means there's something I need to improve within my life. But I feel like every entrepreneur has that natural competition within them. I do want to ask you: has there any been influential people in your life that you felt like they had a big impact to your path of being an entrepreneur? Being an entrepreneur, because one of the biggest things I always tell a lot of people, like if you had to pick like one skill to learn, and I've had this question asked to me before, like they'd be like, what's one skill that you feel like that if I had to pick one skill to be a successful entrepreneur, what skill would that be? And I will ask, for me, it's like learning how to build relationships with people. I feel like that's because if you're gonna build something, if you're gonna start a business, it requires people. And there's a lot of people right now that have great ideas, that have very disciplined, hard workers, that have everything in life. They have all the natural skill and talent, but they're just not good with people. Totally. They're not good with people, and I see them all the time. So I feel like for me, a big part of my success of where I'm at right now, I've always had the ability, well, number one, I value people, I appreciate people, but I've always had the ability to just to connect with people and build relationships. And I feel like that's a skill that a lot of people kind of undervalue. And I feel like if you're gonna be great, especially if you want to scale a business to a bigger to become bigger than what it is today, then there's a lot of that. That means it's gonna require a lot of relationships that you have to make. So, but I want to ask you, who are the people in your life that you feel like that had a big influence on you, that helped you along your way in your journey? And besides your business partner, I know you mentioned her already.
Yeah. I actually feel like it would be like my coaches, and not my business coaches so much as like my like athletic coaches who instilled discipline, grit, resilience, all those things that it bleeds into creating this, like somebody who is not afraid to go out there, take a risk, accept defeat, right? Like fight for your wins. It's a lot of those same sort of physical traits and things that you learned through athletics, through competition, that create like a mentally strong person that can sort of survive through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I think that that's, to put kids in sports is like the best thing you can do. And yes, for the physical wellness, but more so I think for that like mental mindset training that comes,
the toughness that comes with it.
Yeah.
No, it's funny, whenever you meet entrepreneurs or successful people, whenever you look at their life of how they grew up, there's always like, I guess, there's always like breadcrumbs. You can see like, okay, this is why they are who they are today, right? And it's like the fact that you mentioned sports, that's not even a surprise, because obviously that when you meet a lot of great people, a lot of them come from a sports background, because when you play sports, it gives you that, it pushes you, gives you that mental toughness. They always say in sports, 90% of sports is mental, 10%, 15% of it is physical. But what sport did you play, by the way?
I just had this conversation yesterday. So I grew up in gymnastics, and I actually was a dancer. I was in dance, like all sorts of dance forms growing up. And because of my dance and gymnastics background, I ended up as a cheerleader in high school. And so everyone's like, okay, you claim that you were an athlete, but what? So, and I will say, like, competitive cheerleading is very
it's competitive,
misunderstood. But I also think that we do ourselves a disservice by like not updating the uniforms, and like, there's just all these stigmas around
the image.
Right, the image. Yeah. And like game cheerleading is like not a thing, like I can do without that. But after high school, I ended up trying like paddling, jiu-jitsu. I got really into CrossFit. I was like, I was never like a team sport or like ball sport person, because I'm relatively clumsy, but I do really enjoy like the mindset of athletics in general.
I remember I was I had one of my best friends in high school was in cheerleading, and he got competitive because they went. I mean, I think they went all the way to regionals, because a lot of people don't know there are competition levels. It's not just like the high school game or the basketball game. There's just like, and you guys really compete out there with different schools. But yeah, like a lot of people kind of undervalue.
I get it. I totally understand where that stigma comes from, and I don't disagree when I see cheerleaders on the side of a volleyball game, and I'm like, go away, like you're irritating. So I'm like, I get it, but I will say like competitive cheerleading where you have like you have a routine, you do stunts, you do tumbling, like that was hard. So,
yeah. I do have a fun question. Are there any myths that you want to debunk regarding your industry or regarding being an entrepreneur that a lot of people a lot of people have perception of being an entrepreneur, or people have perception of your industry. Are there any myths that you want to debunk and make it clear for a lot of people?
I think we talked about some. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of getting like fuzzy. Yeah.
What are the common myths that you often hear people say regarding like opening a business, or like online business, being on, having your own online business, of what you do. Sometimes, sometimes people have like perceptions of it that you get that that's totally not true.
So a myth in my industry in general, like in specific,
Yeah.
like for website design, is that once I have a website, I will make sales. Once I have a website, people will find me. Or like, why you built me a website? Why do people not just Google me now? Like,
So explain that. Break that down for everybody.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry. I had a call that started at I have a client call that started 8 minutes ago. So I do have to wrap up.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
I will share, I let her know that I'm going to be a little bit late, but I will share that like there is when you have a business or so the product, the service, we always think that that's the center. And we think that people are going to, like, say you make cups and you're like, my cup is the best cup on the planet. And this is my cup. And anybody that Googles best cup in the world, they're going to find my cup, and my cup is going to change their life. And what I want to reframe for people is that the thing that's in here that your business revolves around is a person. It is a person who is struggling because their cup that they're using right now sucks. And they need the solution that you provide by inventing this amazing cup that is going to change the world and change their life. So how do you sell your cup? It's not by hoping that people Google best cup in the world. It's by connecting with the people who are struggling because their cup sucks. And how do you find people that hate the cup that they're drinking out of today? Like, that's your marketing. That's creating the streams of like how do you connect with the people that are suffering because they don't have the solution that you've created? And that is how you sell your cup. Right?
Thank you for making that clear for everybody.
Right? Yeah, totally.
No, I've heard that before. People like, man, I finally bought a website, and then I have nothing's coming in.
And they get mad at you for it. Like, so it's several $1,000s for me to build a website for you. And they're like, I invested all of this in this site. And I was like, do you love your website? And they're like, yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. I'm like, okay, great. That's your vehicle.
Yeah.
Use this. Like, you need to get people to the site. That is not what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you the thing for people to
that's called marketing.
Right. Yeah. And once people understand that, they're cool. Like, they, oh my God, thank you. But especially people new to business, they think that the first thing they need is a website, and then they're good.
Yeah. It's like Google. Everybody just go to your website.
Right. And even then they're like, why am I not coming up on Google? I'm like, okay, search anything on Google. What's the first 5 things you see? And they're like, oh, I see. And I'm like, what's next to it? They're like, ad. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, it's an ad.
You pay to show up first. It's the world you live in. You know?
I know. That's funny. But yeah, I just want to say, we'll wrap up this podcast. I'll say thank you so much. Thank you. We had a lot of fun. Thank you for your knowledge, especially when it came to entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of value by the end, by when they finish watching this podcast for the end of today. One thing I always ask every guest at the end of the show, just share some final thoughts, and we'll close off the podcast with that.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. Like, these 2 hours flew by, and it was really great to have a conversation around this. And I just want to encourage anybody that's listening to this to just take an action today, whatever that is, whether that's like, sitting down and journaling about self-awareness, or maybe taking your idea that you have to the next step. Anything that is going to get you closer to the way that you want to be living your life, anything that gets you closer to that happiness, that state of well-being and fulfillment that you're searching for. It doesn't come without action. And so one little action today, one little action tomorrow, and consistently taking these little actions will sort of get you to that bigger goal. And I encourage you to start today if you haven't already, and reach out to us, reach out to Will, reach out to myself if you have questions, if you just want support. I love talking about this stuff, obviously.